Edward Sinclair, a prosperous five-year-old white millionaire, sat quietly in his lavish yet chilly villa, gazing out at the expansive yard blanketed in thick fog. The expensive wheelchair had become his unwilling companion for the past 18 years, ever since the fateful car accident that robbed him of the use of his legs. Before that tragedy, Edward had been a powerful entrepreneur, admired by friends and business partners alike. He possessed everything one could desire: immense wealth, renowned fame, and a beautiful wife named Victoria by his side. However, the accident altered his entire existence. Friends gradually drifted away once they realized he no longer held the same influence and power. Phone calls became infrequent, social gatherings turned rare, and eventually ceased altogether, leaving him enveloped in profound solitude. Victoria endured his growing bitterness for 4 years before filing for divorce, explaining that she could no longer bear the resentment in his eyes every time she attempted to assist him. His mother, Beatrice, tried to remain connected, but over time, she too grew distant due to his stubborn pride. Now, Edward was left with only resentment and emptiness, convinced that no amount of money could buy a sincere heart or true affection. He often dreamed of walking on his own again, but reality brought only self-loathing and thoughts of ending it all, though he never found the courage to follow through. One late night, a soft knock echoed from the side door. Edward hesitated, but curiosity prevailed. He wheeled himself through the dimly lit hallway, past rooms filled with echoes of happier times, and slowly opened the door. Standing there was a small black girl, her clothes tattered and worn, her eyes sparkling brightly under the faint porch light. "Sir, I'm really hungry. Do you have any leftovers you could spare?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly from the cold. Edward was taken aback by her genuine sincerity. It had been so long since anyone looked at him as just a person, unafraid of his wheelchair. He asked her name, and she replied, "Lily Jenkins." She lived with her mother in a rundown apartment across the street, where her mom worked late hours. Lily explained that a neighbor had mentioned how wealthy people often discarded good food, so she decided to ask. Edward felt a pang of emotion, invited her inside, and fetched a plate of uneaten food from the kitchen. But Lily didn't start eating immediately. Instead, she looked at him earnestly and said, "I can help you walk again. If you give me food, I'll send love and faith to your legs." Edward chuckled at first, thinking it was a child's playful joke, but the pure honesty in her eyes made him pause. There was no mockery, only belief. She shared that her mother always taught her that kindness could heal anything. Edward, recalling the countless doctors and failed therapies over the years, felt a faint spark of hope. He agreed, if only out of sympathy for the cold, hungry child. The next morning, his longtime housekeeper, Clara, warned him not to trust a black child from the slum area, fearing exploitation. Edward felt irritated and defended Lily, sensing a protective instinct. That afternoon, Lily returned with a wildflower wrapped in old newspaper, thanking him and calling it a miracle of gratitude. She asked about his legs, and he shared his story. Lily placed her tiny hand on his knee, and Edward felt an unusual warmth spread, not just in his legs but in his heart, as if her touch reached his soul. She declared the miracle had begun, urging him to believe. Edward reflected, realizing Clara's warnings stemmed from outdated biases. He decided to allow hope to enter his darkened life. Lily continued visiting, sharing stories from her day, gently massaging his calves with childlike determination. Her mother, Sarah Jenkins, a weary single parent in her 30s juggling 3 jobs, grew concerned upon learning of her daughter's outings. Sarah confronted Edward at his door, her eyes fierce with maternal protectiveness, demanding to know his intentions with her child. He explained the encounter calmly, inviting her inside to see for herself. Sarah, haunted by fears of being taken advantage of due to her background, set firm conditions. She would check in regularly to ensure safety. Gradually, Sarah observed Edward's genuine loneliness and lack of malice. As neighbors began whispering about the unusual visits, Sarah and Lily persisted, bringing warmth to the cold mansion. Edward, moved by their resilience, offered them a place to stay, at least temporarily. Sarah accepted, but with three clear terms. Lily's needs came first. She would handle household tasks to contribute, and they would leave with dignity if ever asked. Their shared life began, filled with awkward adjustments but growing comfort. Edward found himself looking forward to Lily's bright energy, which filled the empty rooms with laughter he hadn't heard in years. Sarah's efficient management turned the villa from a sterile space into a home. Yet, subtle tensions arose from external judgments. But within those walls, a fragile bond formed, hinting at deeper changes ahead. As days turned into weeks, Edward noticed small shifts in his own outlook. The bitterness that had defined him started to fade, replaced by curiosity about Lily's unwavering faith. She would arrive each afternoon after school, her backpack slung over one shoulder, eyes wide with stories of playground adventures or lessons learned. One day, she brought a handmade drawing of a man standing tall beside a little girl, labeling it Mr. Edward and Me. Walking together. Touched, he hung it on the fridge, a simple act that symbolized his opening heart. Sarah, watching from the kitchen as she prepared meals, felt a mix of wariness and relief. Her daughter seemed happier, less burdened by their previous struggles. Edward shared bits of his past during quiet evenings, tales of business triumphs, travels to exotic places, and the joy of feeling the ground beneath his feet during morning runs. Lily listened intently, her questions innocent yet probing. Did it hurt when you couldn't run anymore? My mom says pain makes us stronger if we believe. Her words echoed her mother's teachings, blending optimism with resilience born from hardship. Edward began to question his long-held cynicism. Perhaps there was truth in the idea that emotional connections could spark physical renewal. He even attempted small exercises Lily suggested, like wiggling his toes in his mind, laughing at the absurdity but secretly hoping. Clara, the housekeeper, observed these interactions with growing unease, her comments laced with subtle disapproval. But Edward brushed them off, focusing on the positive energy. One evening, as fog rolled in again, mirroring the haze in his mind, Lily sat beside him on the porch, her small hand on his arm. Mr. Edward, miracles aren't magic. They're what happens when people care enough to try. Her wisdom, far beyond her years, stirred something deep within him, a reminder that isolation had been his true prison, not just the wheelchair. Sarah joined them occasionally, sharing her own stories of perseverance, raising Lily alone after difficult times, facing daily challenges with grace. These conversations built trust, turning strangers into allies. Edward realized how insulated his life had been, never noticing the struggles just across the street. A sense of shame washed over him for his past self-absorption, but it fueled a desire to give back. He started small acts of kindness, like ordering extra groceries for Sarah or helping Lily with homework, finding joy in these simple gestures. As the bond strengthened, whispers from neighbors grew louder, curious glances over fences, murmured questions about those visitors. But inside, the villa transformed. Rooms once silent now echoed with shared meals, bedtime stories, and tentative plans for the future. Lily's faith became infectious. Edward dreamed vividly one night of standing, feeling grass underfoot, waking with a renewed sense of possibility. Sarah noticed his subtle changes, a softer gaze, fewer sighs of frustration, and felt her guards lowering. Their arrangement, born from a chance knock, evolved into something profound, laying the foundation for unforeseen trials and triumphs. Yet, in these early days, the focus remained on nurturing this budding connection, unaware of the storms brewing beyond their sanctuary. Edward pondered late into the nights, staring at the ceiling, how a child's pure heart could illuminate the darkest corners of an adult's soul. Lily's visits became routine, each one a thread weaving a tapestry of hope. She taught him games from her neighborhood, adapted for his situation, laughing together when things went awry. Sarah's presence added stability. Her practical nature complemented Edward's reflective one, creating balance. Clara's reservations persisted, but she kept them mostly to herself, performing duties with quiet efficiency. As seasons hinted at change, fog giving way to clearer skies, Edward felt internal shifts too. A faint tingling in his calves during one of Lily's healing sessions startled him. Was it imagination or something more? He dismissed it at first, but the sensation returned, prompting quiet reflection on the power of belief. Sarah encouraged caution, reminding him of medical realities, yet she couldn't deny the positive impact on his mood. Neighbors' curiosity turned to mild gossip, but the trio ignored it, focusing inward. Edward began researching stories of unexpected recoveries, sharing findings with Sarah over tea, sparking thoughtful discussions on mind-body connections. Lily, oblivious to deeper implications, simply continued her acts of kindness, her innocence a beacon. Beatrice, Edward's mother, called sporadically, her voice tinged with concern upon hearing of the new residents. He assured her all was well, hinting at the joy they brought. These early interactions set the stage for deeper bonds, as trust grew like vines on the villa's walls. Challenges loomed, but in this chapter of beginnings, the emphasis was on discovery, the miracle of human connection, bridging divides of wealth, background, and circumstance. Edward, once resigned to a life of shadows, now glimpsed light, thanks to a knock that opened not just a door, but his heart. The days blended into a rhythm of shared experiences. Lily's school tales, Sarah's quiet efficiency in managing the home, Edward's gradual opening up about his fears and dreams. One afternoon, as rain pattered against windows, Lily insisted on a belief exercise, guiding Edward to visualize walking across the room. He humored her, closing eyes and imagining each step, surprised by the vividness. Sarah watched from afar, her heart warming at the scene, though worries about external judgments lingered. Clara's subtle comments, "Be careful with strangers," irritated Edward, but he chose patience, valuing her long service. As evenings lengthened, conversations deepened. Edward learned of Sarah's sacrifices, working multiple jobs, shielding Lily from hardships, and admired her strength. In turn, he shared vulnerabilities, admitting how the accident shattered his self-image. Lily's presence lightened these moments, her laughter an antidote to heaviness. A turning point came when Edward felt a voluntary twitch in his foot during sleep, waking excited yet doubtful. He confided in Sarah, who suggested consulting a doctor, but for now, they celebrated small victories. Neighbors' whispers evolved into direct questions during rare outings, but Edward deflected with grace, protecting his newfound peace. Beatrice visited unexpectedly one day, her arrival tense but ultimately revealing. She saw the genuine care and began softening her stance. These foundational weeks built resilience, preparing them for future adversities. The villa, once a symbol of isolation, now pulsed with life meals shared, stories exchanged, hopes nurtured. Edward marveled at how a simple act of generosity, offering leftovers, sparked a chain of events leading to profound change. Lily's faith, Sarah's determination, and his own willingness to believe created a synergy that defied logic. As fog lifted permanently, so did the veil over Edward's spirit, ushering in an era of possibility. Their story, just beginning, promised lessons in empathy, courage, and the transformative power of connection. As the new living arrangement in the Sinclair villa settled into a tentative rhythm, Sarah took charge of the household with quiet efficiency, transforming the once sterile spaces into areas buzzing with subtle activity. Freshly laundered linens stacked neatly, meals prepared with care from simple ingredients that evoked memories of warmer times, and the faint aroma of herbs from a small garden she started in the backyard to teach Lily about growth and patience. Lily, with her boundless energy, darted through the grand rooms like a beam of sunlight piercing clouds, her laughter echoing off the high ceilings as she invented games that involved pushing Edward's wheelchair in playful races or drawing maps of imaginary adventures where everyone could walk freely without barriers. Edward found himself drawn into these moments, his initial skepticism giving way to genuine amusement. He began sharing old books from his library with Lily, reading tales of explorers and inventors, pointing out how perseverance turned obstacles into triumphs, all while noticing how her innocent questions prompted him to reflect on his own stalled journey. Yet, beneath this emerging harmony, shadows of external judgment began to creep in, starting with anonymous letters slipped under the gate, scrawled notes warning of leeches draining the rich or outsiders with hidden agendas, their venomous words a stark reminder of the divides that wealth and background could amplify. Neighbors, once distant figures glimpsed through windows, now lingered at fences with pointed stairs, whispering among themselves about the unusual company at the millionaire's home, speculating on motives that painted Sarah and Lily as opportunists rather than companions. One particularly vocal resident, Mrs. My. Evelyn from the adjacent estate, made no effort to hide her disdain during a chance encounter at the mailbox, her voice dripping with condescension as she remarked on how generosity can sometimes invite trouble from certain quarters, her eyes flicking toward the rundown apartments across the street as if to underscore an unspoken hierarchy. Clara, the housekeeper who had served the family for decades, observed these developments with a tightening jaw, her loyalty to Edward clashing with an ingrained unease. She muttered under her breath about changes that disrupt the natural order, her comments growing sharper during private moments, though she masked them with polite nods when Sarah was near. Despite these undercurrents, Lily persisted with her daily healing rituals, her small hands gently pressing on Edward's knees as she whispered encouragements like, "Feel the warmth, Mr. Edward, it's your strength waking up." And remarkably, he started experiencing fleeting sensations, a subtle prickling in his toes, a warmth that spread upward like a forgotten memory resurfacing, prompting him to wonder if belief could indeed bridge the gap between mind and body. Eager to verify, Edward scheduled a discreet medical checkup with Dr. Amelia, a specialist who had monitored his condition for years. She conducted tests with professional detachment, her brow furrowing at the unexpected neural responses, admitting a measurable improvement but cautioning that it might stem from psychological factors or even external influences, her gaze lingering on Sarah and Lily in the waiting area with a hint of unspoken suspicion that made Edward bristle internally. Word of these visits somehow leaked perhaps through a loose-lipped clinic staffer and reached Victoria, Edward's ex-wife, who was navigating her own financial strains in a modest apartment downtown, her bitterness from the divorce festering into resentment. She viewed the news as an opportunity, consulting a sharp lawyer to probe for vulnerabilities, convinced that Sarah and Lily's presence was a calculated scheme to siphon his assets under the guise of compassion. The pressure mounted subtly at first, harassing phone calls in the dead of night with heavy breathing or curt warnings to watch your back, packages of trash dumped at the gate as crude symbols of disdain, and online forums buzzing with anonymous posts questioning Edward's judgment in harboring strangers from the wrong side. Lily, sensing the shift in atmosphere, asked Sarah one evening with wide eyes, "Mom, is it because we're different that people whisper so much?" Her question piercing Sarah's heart like a thorn, forcing her to hold her daughter close while grappling with the weight of inherited biases that no child should bear. Overwhelmed, Sarah confronted Edward in the quiet of the study, her voice steady but laced with concern, suggesting they leave to spare him further scrutiny. He refused, gently but firmly, his hand reaching for hers in a rare gesture of solidarity, arguing that fleeing would only validate the prejudices, and instead, they should stand together to prove that connections could transcend superficial divides. Amid this escalating tension, Beatrice, Edward's mother, arrived unannounced one crisp morning, her elegant coat and determined stride belying the storm in her eyes. She swept into the living room, her gaze icy as it landed on Sarah tidying the mantel and Lily sketching at the table, immediately launching into a tirade about allowing people of differing stations to overstep boundaries, her words a mix of protectiveness and ingrained elitism that stung the air. Sarah, refusing to cower, met her eyes squarely and responded with quiet dignity. "Mrs. Sinclair, I stand here not as a beggar, but as someone contributing with honest work. Look beyond appearances and see the light we've brought to your son's life." He smiles now. "Something I hear hasn't happened in years." Edward, caught between loyalties, felt a surge of resolve and intervened, declaring for the first time that this was his chosen family, his voice firm as he asked his mother to respect his decisions or risk widening the rift. Beatrice left in a huff, but the encounter planted seeds of doubt in her mind. Over the following days, she observed from afar, noticing how Sarah's steady presence stabilized the household, and Lily's joy infused Edward with purpose, leading her to a private moment of reflection where old assumptions cracked, culminating in a heartfelt apology delivered over tea, where she admitted her fears had blinded her to genuine goodness, vowing to support them as allies rather than adversaries. This quiet alliance provided a buffer, but betrayal lurked closer to home. Sarah, while organizing the pantry one afternoon, overheard Clara on the phone in the garden, her words sharp and conspiratorial. "Yes, I've seen her poking around the study. These types always have ulterior motives, and I'll keep you updated for the lawyer." Shocked, Sarah pieced together the fragments Clara had been feeding information to Victoria's team, twisting innocent actions into evidence of deceit, her actions driven by a deep-seated resentment toward outsiders encroaching on what she saw as her domain. Confronting Clara in the kitchen that evening, Sarah's voice trembled with controlled anger. "Why spread lies about us? We've only brought care and companionship. Do you realize the harm in fueling these baseless accusations?" Clara, unrepentant, retorted that she was merely safeguarding the family's legacy from those who don't belong, her words revealing layers of prejudice long buried under a veneer of service. Edward, overhearing the exchange from the hallway, entered with a heavy heart, his face etched with disappointment as he demanded the truth. Upon Clara's admission, he made the painful choice to let her go, thanking her for years of dedication but stating unequivocally that intolerance had no place in his home, a decision that severed a long-standing tie but affirmed his commitment to justice and the budding family unit. As Clara departed, the villa felt both lighter and more vulnerable. The external storm now fully unleashed with the arrival of the lawsuit papers, Victoria's formal claim to freeze assets, alleging emotional manipulation and exploitation across lines of class and heritage, her public statements to the press framing Edward as a vulnerable mark ensnared by cunning interlopers. Tabloids seized the narrative, splashing headlines like "Millionaire under spell of mysterious visitors" across front pages, distorting facts into sensational fodder that amplified societal rifts and turned private healing into public spectacle. Neighbors escalated their disdain, with organized petitions circulating to restore order in the upscale enclave, while online trolls bombarded social media with vitriol, questioning Sarah's motives and Lily's innocence in ways that eroded the fragile peace. Through it all, the trio, Edward, Sarah, and Lily, drew closer, holding late-night discussions by the fireplace where they shared strategies for endurance. Edward reassuring them that truth would prevail, Sarah drawing on her reservoir of resilience from past hardships, and Lily offering childlike optimism that storms make rainbows brighter. Beatrice, now fully on board, used her social connections to counter the rumors, hosting discreet gatherings to vouch for the authenticity of the changes in her son, her transformation, a beacon amid the chaos. Dr. Amelia's follow-up exams confirmed ongoing progress in Edward's neural pathways, her initial doubts giving way to cautious optimism, though she warned of the stress from the legal battle potentially hindering recovery, a concern that prompted Edward to incorporate mindfulness practices suggested by Sarah, like quiet walks in the garden where Lily pointed out budding flowers as symbols of persistence. The lawsuit's preliminaries dragged on, with depositions that probed intimate details of their interactions, Victoria's team painting every kindness as a calculated ploy, but Edward's steadfast testimony highlighted the voluntary nature of their bond, emphasizing how Sarah's support and Lily's faith had reignited his will to live. Community organizations began taking notice, some offering quiet support through letters of encouragement, while others debated the case in forums as a litmus test for empathy in divided times. Sarah, feeling the weight of scrutiny, channeled her energy into community outreach, volunteering at local shelters to demonstrate her character beyond the accusations, her actions inspiring Lily to create handmade cards of thanks for supporters. As pressures peaked with a leaked medical report twisted by the media to suggest foul play, Edward convened a family meeting, affirming their unity. "We've built something real here, and no amount of noise can dismantle it if we hold firm." This chapter of trials forged their resilience, turning whispers into roars but also solidifying alliances, setting the stage for revelations that would challenge perceptions and pave the way for vindication. The storm, though fierce, revealed hidden strength: Sarah's unyielding protectiveness, Lily's unwavering light, Edward's emerging leadership, and Beatrice's redemptive arc, proving that adversity, when faced together, could temper bonds into unbreakable steel. With the lawsuit transforming into a high-stakes public drama that captivated not just the local community but rippled through national headlines, Victoria strode into the courtroom with an air of calculated poise, her team of attorneys armed with stacks of documents, forged affidavits from disgruntled former associates, manipulated financial records suggesting undue influence, and sensationalized reports from private investigators who had shadowed Sarah and Lily for weeks, twisting mundane errands into evidence of scheming. The proceedings unfolded like a theatrical showdown, with Edward taking the stand first, his voice steady as he recounted the organic evolution of their relationship, emphasizing how Sarah's unwavering support had reignited his sense of purpose, and Lily's childlike conviction had sparked inexplicable physical sensations that no prior treatment had achieved, countering every accusation with calm facts that highlighted the voluntary nature of their shared life. The tension escalated when Lily was summoned as a witness. The courtroom hushed as the young girl climbed onto the stand, her simple dress and braided hair contrasting the stern formality around her. The opposing lawyer grilled her with leading questions about secrets or promises for money. But Lily responded with disarming clarity, her eyes wide and honest as she explained, "I just wanted Mr. Edward to feel happy again, like when I give him drawings, or tell him stories from school. Miracles happen when you care, not when you take." Her words hanging in the air like a gentle rebuke, eliciting murmurs from the gallery, and even a softened expression from the judge, who probed gently about her intentions, only to receive a heartfelt reply that love doesn't ask for anything back, it just grows like flowers in the sun. The pivotal moment arrived with the court-mandated medical evaluation, conducted live under the scrutiny of independent experts and flashing cameras. Dr. Amelia, flanked by colleagues from prestigious institutions, presented detailed scans and neural mappings, her testimony evolving from cautious analysis to outright astonishment as she declared, "The regeneration in Mr. Sinclair's spinal pathways defies conventional explanations. While psychological factors play a role, the measurable reconnection of nerves suggests an unprecedented synergy of will, environment, and perhaps unquantifiable elements like sustained emotional encouragement," her words bolstered by real-time demonstrations where electrodes captured faint but verifiable muscle responses in Edward's legs. As the judge called for a practical verification, the room fell into a profound silence. Edward, drawing on months of quiet practice and the invisible strength from Sarah's encouraging nods and Lily's beaming faith, gripped the arms of his chair, closed his eyes to summon every ounce of determination, forged through adversity, and slowly rose his legs, trembling but holding. The first step forward, eliciting gasps that crescendoed into applause, cameras whirring as he took another, then a third, crossing the courtroom floor with deliberate grace that symbolized not just physical rebirth, but a defiant stand against doubt and division. The judge, moved by the display, dismissed the case with a resounding gavel strike, ruling that no exploitation existed and instead commending the positive impact of Sarah and Lily's presence, his verdict echoing through the halls as a triumph of authenticity over suspicion. Outside, the media frenzy shifted overnight from salacious speculation to uplifting narratives, with headlines proclaiming Faith and Family Heal Paralyzed Tycoon and in-depth features exploring themes of cross-cultural bonds, prompting a wave of public support donations to similar causes, viral videos of people sharing personal stories of overcoming biases, and invitations for the family to speak at conferences on resilience and unity. In the aftermath, as the villa basked in a newfound calm with sunlight streaming through windows that once framed stormy views, Edward gathered his courage in the sunlit kitchen, where aromas of fresh-baked bread mingled with the scent of blooming herbs from Sarah's garden. He took her hand, his voice soft yet resolute, proposing marriage not as a grand gesture, but as a heartfelt acknowledgement of how her strength had anchored him through chaos, her acceptance sealed with tears of joy and Lily's exuberant cheers. While Beatrice looked on with pride, her own journey from skepticism to advocacy complete, the engagement announcement sparked a communal renaissance. Neighbors who had once gossiped now extended olive branches, organizing block gatherings to foster dialogue on inclusivity, local nonprofits partnering with Sarah to launch programs aiding single parents from diverse backgrounds, and schools incorporating Lily's story into curricula on empathy, turning her into a pint-sized ambassador with drawings exhibited in community centers as symbols of hope. As wedding preparations unfolded, the villa hummed with collaborative energy. Lily selecting vibrant blooms from the garden to represent growth, Beatrice coordinating with old friends to ensure a blend of traditions that honored both heritages, and Edward, now walking short distances unaided, personally inviting former detractors to the ceremony as a testament to forgiveness and second chances. The wedding day dawned with a crisp breeze carrying petals across the lawn, the entire neighborhood converging in a tented celebration where vows were exchanged under an arch woven with vines. Edward promising to cherish the unexpected paths that led to renewal, Sarah vowing to nurture their shared future with the same tenacity that had sustained her through trials. Their rings simple bands etched with motifs of intertwined roots, symbolizing unbreakable ties. Guests, from affluent locals to Sarah's colleagues from humble beginnings, mingled in harmony. Toasts raising glasses to the power of vulnerability and dismantling walls, the event captured in photos that went viral, inspiring global conversations on healing divisions through personal stories. In the years that followed, the family's influence extended far beyond their enclave. Edward founded a foundation funding research into holistic recoveries, blending medical science with emotional wellness programs. Sarah authored a memoir detailing her navigation of societal hurdles, becoming a sought-after speaker at empowerment workshops. Lily, growing into a confident teen, led youth initiatives promoting cross-generational mentorship, her early faith evolving into advocacy for underrepresented voices. Beatrice, in her twilight years, volunteered at integration centers, sharing her transformation as a cautionary tale against entrenched views, her bond with Lily deepening into a grandmotherly role filled with storytelling sessions under starlit skies. The villa itself became a hub for gatherings, open houses where strangers shared meals and experiences, workshops on building bridges across differences, and quiet retreats for those seeking solace from life's fractures. Edward often reflected during solitary walks in the expanded garden, marveling at how a single act of opening his door had cascaded into a legacy of change, his steps now firm reminders that true miracles manifest not in isolation but through collective courage. Sarah, beside him in these moments, would squeeze his hand, their shared glances conveying unspoken gratitude for the journey that turned pain into purpose. Lily, ever the spark, would bound in with new ideas, perhaps a community art project depicting unity, or a podcast interviewing everyday heroes, her enthusiasm ensuring the ripple effects continued. As seasons cycled, bringing new challenges like navigating public scrutiny or supporting others in similar binds, the family remained anchored in their core values: belief in human potential, commitment to equity, and the transformative essence of kindness. Their narrative, woven into books, documentaries, and educational modules, served as a timeless blueprint for societies grappling with polarization, proving that when individuals choose empathy over exclusion, entire communities can evolve. Edward's full mobility, achieved through ongoing therapy infused with the emotional foundation they built, stood as a living testament, but he always emphasized that the greater achievement was the mending of hearts his own, once encased in cynicism, now open and expansive. Sarah's pride in her heritage, once shadowed by fear, now shone brightly in her advocacy work, empowering others to claim their stories without apology. Lily's generation, inspired by her example, approached differences with curiosity rather than caution, fostering a world where connections flourished naturally. Beatrice's late-life awakening added depth, showing that change knows no age limit, her contributions to reconciliation efforts earning quiet accolades. Together, they hosted annual reunions, inviting all who had touched their path, from supportive allies to reformed skeptics, turning the villa into a symbol of perpetual renewal. In quiet evenings, as fireflies danced in the twilight, Edward would gather them on the porch, recounting how doubt had nearly extinguished his spirit, only for light to prevail through unexpected sources, his words a gentle reminder to cherish the miracles hidden in everyday encounters. The family's enduring impact rippled outward, influencing policies on inclusive healthcare, community-building initiatives, and even artistic expressions that celebrated diversity, ensuring their chapter of victory echoed eternally, a beacon for those navigating their own storms toward lasting harmony.